Hello guys, today we'll be taking a look at two eddy current units that are commonly available. I would have done three, but unfortunately the one I have, the third one, is not working properly. So we're going to go with two, maybe some other time. We'll do a review on that. Eddy current has been one of those areas of entity where we have very limited information. One of those information is when you come to choosing an eddy current unit to use for test. Just a disclaimer here, this is not an advert for any company or any unit. As you can see, as you will see rather in this video, you see that each of them, they all have their advantages and their disadvantages. And what you should look at as an eddy current inspector will be the functionality, what you're trying to get, and if the machine meets the requirement of what you want. So before we go straight down, we'll be looking at two eddy current units, the Olympus Nortec 600 eddy current unit and the Oko NDT Group Eddycon CL. We're going to look at their features and their similarities and differences and how you can use them for whatever application you want to use based on their functionality. So let's dive into it. Okay, so we'll now look at the Eddycon CL and then look at the features. If you turn it on, you'll see that the screen is a little bit more complicated and then you have your impedance plane and your time-based display. And most of the functions that you are going to need to manipulate your impedance and the impedance plane and your time-based, they are all on the screen. Also, the buttons are all basically there. So your zero balancing or null button, your angle, your gain, and the other basic buttons, they are all on the screen. So you can just move up and down or move up and down. When you get a particular function, you can increase or decrease. So it's pretty straightforward. Any other function that is not on the main screen, if you come to the setting, they are all there. So if you don't get them on the main screen, you are going to get them all on the setting. So setup is pretty straightforward and very easy to use. So you don't have to go digging all around. If we go back to the main screen, you see your frequency, your preamplification, your gain, your drive voltage, phase goal, and all. They are all there on the main screen. So pretty easy to use. The If you are looking at the application that this machine is capable of doing, if you come to the setting, you basically have two modes, your expert mode and your conductivity mode. So the application for which this equipment can be put to use is basically limited. Now, when you are in your expert mode covers for your weld, your surface inspection, your wheel inspection, everything is covered. So what this equipment functionality does is it groups all this application where you are doing what we call flaw detection, whether you are looking for subsurface crack, whether you are looking for surface crack, whether you are doing wet scan, whether you are doing plane surface scan, they all fall under the expert mode. The other functions that you have, the other application that you have basically is your conductivity mode. The third mode is your test mode, which is for the equipment manufacturer, or the calibration company to perform the calibration on the equipment. So if we go back to the experts mode, if we go back to the expert mode, you'll see that please ignore this what you see on the screen here. We'll talk about that later. If you go to your screen and you look at your below here display, in this case, it does display your voltage, which is your amplitude voltage. In this case, which is your peak voltage. Then you have your angles in degree. Then you have your depth. Talk about this later. Then you have your frequency, your drive frequency. Take note, your drive frequency is different from your frequency of your probe. Your drive frequency has to do with your display frequency. That is a digitization. So one major advantage of this unit over a lot smaller unit is this ability to give us the depth of the indication. In other equipment that I've used, for you to get the depth of your indication, you need to do some form of extrapolation. Look at that in another video. So, in order for us to be able to get the depth, we need it creates another button, which is the calibration button. From the calibration button, you can use your normal calibration standard, which is your notches, your three notches. You can use the depth of the three notches to calibrate for depth. And with that, this machine automatically gives you the depth of the indication. So this is a major advantage of this unit over other units. It gives the depth which other units are not able to do. Then another very important feature of this machine, it gives you both the impedance plane and the time base directly on setup. This you can change if you want, but it makes it easier instead of you digging to find the impedance plane and the time base. So major advantage of this unit, the ease of use and the ability to get the depth of whatever indication you get if your calibration is done properly. I think that wraps up for the Nortec and sorry, the Eddycon CL. Okay, so now we will be looking at the interface of the Nortec 600. One advantage of the Nortec 600 is when you turn it on, it gives you the application interface where you see all the possible applications that this machine can be used for in terms of eddy current. As you can see on the screen, you can see it does surface inspection, both inspection, subsurface, weld and wheel, dual frequency, heat exchanger. Then you can also use it as with an indexing scanner. Then this is your power link if you want to use it for remote function. So basically, it is pretty straightforward. So whichever application you want to put it to, it just shows. It is whatever will display when you pick the application that you want to do. It shows rather, and that is, for example, if I am doing surface crack application inspection, the variables that are going to come out will be radically different from the ones that will come out if I'm selecting heat exchanger application or dual frequency. So for the eddy current inspector, you need to know exactly what you want to do. From experience, most of the application that we do for eddy current, most commonly used ones, especially that is not related to aerospace for oil and gas, they basically will fall under weld and wheel. But in the true sense of it, weld and wheel is when you are doing an aircraft wheel inspection, and also when you are doing a weld inspection. So in both cases, this application works. For surface crack, it's basically when you are doing inspection, and some surface when you are also doing an inspection application that has to do with you testing on a flat surface. But in this case, you're looking for some indications. So most application will choose a weld and wheel. And if you can look at it, if you look at the Nortec 600, you discover that, okay, let's pick a weld and wheel and we check it. If you look at your display screen, the features that are shown on the screen are very limited. So as the eddy current inspector, you'll be doing a lot of digging, function that you are looking for. So it's only the basic functions that are on your screen. So you have your gain, your angle, your norm, which is also your balancing. And if you are doing calibration, you have a second function there, which is the A lift. Then your erase and freeze, then your save function. Every other thing is hidden, so you will have to bring them out. Bringing them out will be you having to manipulate both this horizontal and the vertical buttons that are here. The purpose of this video is not to look at the setup. We'll do that in another video, but just to do comparison. So if I look at the main or the filter menu, you see your filter and then your continuous and non off, your off link, and then your scan RPM if you are doing a boat inspection. If you look at the display menu, you see. So you have to figure out where these things are. Your alarm, which controls your gate, is also hidden in memory and your advanced setup. For your vertical buttons, is just to pick the functions that are displayed here. So basically, a lot of the applications for the lots of the functions are hidden within the buttons. They don't just jump at you. So it means you need to carefully read the manual, which I often advise for you to understand the functionality of this unit. Then one other thing that is displayed here, you have your VPP, which is your voltage of peak to peak point, and your angle PP. So basically, this is just it is simple to use. For me, the advantage of this equipment for this unit is it has a very versatile use. You can use it for a whole lot of application, which makes it very good. And that, from the practical point of it, it's a very sharp machine, and the linearity of the indications are very, very, very good. So that will check when we look at other videos. When you turn on your Nortec 600, it will give you just the impedance plane. And then for field inspection, working with only the impedance plane could be a big issue for inspectors, because what you're already just going to experience, you'll be seeing impedance curve flying all over the place. And you won't know if these curves are coming from your real indication or they are coming from, maybe for example, your wet cap or other force indication or geometry of the structure you are testing. So for you to properly work with it and get this defect easily, you need to look at the display mode and include both the impedance and the time base, which is the sweep mode. So when you turn on this, you see this is your time base and this is your impedance plane. So this is the eating of a challenge, but you need to turn on your impedance plane and your time base. Interestingly, when you turn on your time base, you cannot do any additional calibration. So this can only be done after you've done your calibration, you've done your lift off and done your rotation and other shake before you turn on your time base. So that could be a disadvantage, because when you turn it on, you can't go back to the other way. So that's one. Okay. Another issue is if you are using this unit, if you look at your time base and your impedance plane, it's very small, and that could be an issue, and you might easily miss out on some indications. So you need to do full screen. But even as full screen, there is still a limitation to the size of the display. So I see this as some form of a disadvantage because obviously the bigger the screen, the easier it is for you to see indication, and also for the time base, you have a shorter time base, especially when you increase the time. So because for a longer time base, for a longer display time, it means that your indications become more packed up, and that will be a challenge. So for me, this display can also be an issue for the inspector. I believe with this little highlights, you've learned one or two things about the two units. As the inspector, it is your choice to pick whatever machine that you are comfortable with. I'm not recommending anyone. I'm not saying one is good and one is bad. So it all depends on the application you are doing. So you can decide on the best Eddy current unit that is suitable for you. Some other time we'll look at a mentor, GE mentor, which will look at their advantages and their disadvantages. Thank you.